Hello, welcome to the Film After 11 podcast. My name is Joshua Zeiber. My co-host this week is my son Joseph.
Hello.
For those of you joining us for the first time, this is the podcast where I try to introduce my children to famous movies they've never seen. Joseph, our movie this week is going to be the 1992 classic, A League of Their Own. Based on that cover art, Joseph, what would you guess this movie is about?
Baseball.
Clever boy. Yes, this is a movie that combines aspects of two other titles that we had covered previously in this podcast when it was known as Film at 11. Back in episode 5, we watched the baseball movie The Sandlot, which I believe you liked. And in episode 12, we watched the movie Big. That was directed by Penny Marshall, who also made this. You liked that one as well, as I recall.
Yes.
So I'm hopeful that this will work for you as well.
Okay.
So that being the case, are you ready to play some ball?
Sure.
Batter up.
Okay, girls, this is it.
Well, we are back from watching A League of Their Own. Joseph, my very first question for you is going to be this. Was this a home run or was this a strikeout for you?
I'd say like a double.
Double. Only a double? Okay.
Yeah.
So, Joseph, this is a movie that is not necessarily a true story based on specific characters, but it is a true story about the events that happened, the history of baseball. Were you aware of this historical story of women playing baseball at this time?
Not really.
Okay. Did you understand why they were recruiting women to play baseball?
Yes.
Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, because all the men were going to war.
Right. A lot of the men were off fighting in the war, and the baseball owners still needed players, so they created this female baseball league. What would you say were some of the prominent themes in the movie?
Misogynism.
Yeah, misogyny. Yep. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of sexism in this movie, and that's intentional, of course. Do you have any particular examples that stood out to you?
Well, I mean, when they were like making the teams, one of the women there couldn't even read.
Right.
And they were like an adult. So.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's less sexism than illiteracy.
Yeah.
What were some of the other examples of sexism in the movie?
Well, I mean, most of the men were like they didn't think that the women could play baseball.
True.
I'm a ball player! I'm a ball player! That's not on third base! Playing first base, number 15, Helen Haley. Better look out, I might break a nail!
Some other things that stood out to me was the fact that they were initially only recruiting the prettiest girls.
Yes.
We'll let you know.
They were trying to get men into the audience, and they thought they needed pretty girls for that. And I mean, that's pretty sexist right there. Yeah. In addition to that, there was, like you said, there was a lot of people calling out that girls can't play baseball. They just made assumptions that they wouldn't be any good at it, and their attendance was very low at first until they started showing people that they were really good. If you noticed, there was also it wasn't a long reference, but there was a slight reference in there to the fact that there's racism at this time as well, where they spotted there was a black woman who walked onto the field and threw the ball to the main character of Dottie.
Right here.
and she could have. It was clear that she could have played baseball also, but although they were recruiting white girls to play this, they still weren't recruiting black girls because racism, obviously. While they seemed to make some progress, it wasn't fully there yet.
Yeah.
And also at the end of it, the women, they play for a few years, but then the women are expected to go back to home.
Yeah.
As soon as the men come back from the war, that's it. And that was true not just in baseball, but in a lot of areas, because a lot of women had been recruited to work in factories to build planes and tanks for the war, and they were, and cars and other things, and they were all sent home at the end, and because the men were back and they were going to take those jobs. As someone who has played a little bit of Little League baseball, what did you think of the baseball in this movie? Did you find it exciting?
Yeah, I think the baseball was probably the best part.
At the end of the movie, spoiler alert, sorry, do you think that Dottie threw the game for her sister?
I mean, I'm not sure.
Yeah, they leave it a little ambiguous, because it could be that she let go of that ball on purpose so that her sister could win.
Here comes the throw. It should be inside.
Or maybe her sister legitimately knocked it out of her hand. Mm-hmm. They leave it a little ambiguous. I like to think that that her sister Kit really did get that run. That it was, that Dottie wasn't going to give her a break, and that Kit earned that moment.
Yeah.
So, did you recognize any of the actors in the movie?
No.
Not even Tom Hanks?
No.
We've watched 2 movies with him on previous episodes of this podcast. He was in Big. Mm-hmm. He was the star of Big. He was the star of Apollo 13.
Yeah.
You didn't recognize him playing Jimmy, their coach and manager?
I thought I recognized him. I didn't remember the name.
Okay. Did you recognize anyone else?
I don't think so.
Okay. The other big name you're missing here is Madonna. She played May, what's the appropriate word for May? The very free-willed member of the team.
What if at a key moment in the game, my uniform bursts open and oops, my bosoms come flying out. Now, that might draw a crowd, right?
You think there were men in this country who ain't seen your bosoms?
Yeah, that was Madonna, super famous pop star. She, at this time, was really making a push into acting. She's still done it occasionally since then, but this was one of her biggest roles as an actress. And to be fair to you, I watched a movie with your brother, Dick Tracy, that Madonna was the main female lead in, and he didn't recognize her either.
Yeah.
I guess maybe it's just your generation doesn't really know Madonna all that well. Okay. What did you think of Jimmy's character arc in the movie?
I mean, I didn't really like his character too much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I just thought he was kind of mean.
He was definitely mean, especially at the beginning. He didn't care anything about the girls or about baseball, female baseball especially. Yeah. He had been a professional baseball player, and I think he probably cared about that when it was men's league.
It's made very clear to me what I'm supposed to do here. I smile, wave my little hat, and I did that. So when do I get paid?
But he did change over the course of the movie. Mm-hmm. Did you come around on him towards the end?
No.
No, you just thought he was still a jerk?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. Yeah, I will say that, to be fair to him, he did start caring more about it. He did start being a real coach, which he hadn't been at first. That Dottie had to be the coach. Mm-hmm. Back to my previous question about recognizing any actors. I don't necessarily expect you to recognize anyone else, but there were some other really famous people in this movie. The lead who played Dottie, her name is Gina Davis. She'd been in a lot of movies. She actually won an Oscar for a movie called The Accidental Tourist. It had Rosie O'Donnell. She was a comedian and an actress, and for a long time she hosted a very popular talk show on television. And then other people who are just like very strong supporting actors and had been character actors in a lot of other movies. We got John Lovitz and David Strathairn and Bill Pullman and Anne Ramsey and Laurie Petty. These are all actors who, deserve a little credit here. And we had talked at the beginning of this that the movie was directed by Penny Marshall. It was notable that this was made by a woman, I think very appropriately so. It was made by a woman. She had been an actress early in her career. She'd started on a very popular sitcom called Laverne and Shirley. But then she transitioned into directing and proved herself to be a very popular director. She made Big. That was one of her big breakthroughs. She made this and some other movies. Did you find the length of the movie too long? Did you find it okay? It was just a little over 2 hours. How was the pacing of the movie for you?
I thought it was just a tiny bit slow.
Okay. I mean, I think that's fair. It does. What did you think of the ending?
Well, I thought the ending dragged on for a little bit too long, but I liked it.
I think I agree. I liked it overall, but I do think it dragged on a bit. You have the habit of, as soon as the credits come up, you're out the door.
Yeah.
And this movie still had stuff going on over the credits, and you were just like, I don't care. You just bolted. Yeah. So Joseph, on our scale for this podcast of a W to an L, where would you rate this overall?
Probably a W.
Okay. But it wasn't your favorite of the movies we've seen?
Yeah.
Okay.
It probably wasn't.
Okay. Well, I think it's a good movie. I think that, for being a baseball movies tend to be very formulaic. They have a certain structure, and a lot of baseball movies are the same as one another.
Yeah.
That this one at least gave you a little something to think about. Okay. So it's a W for you. So I think that wraps up our podcast just about for this week. If you enjoyed this content, please like, share, and subscribe. And Joseph, I have one final question for you. Did this movie make you cry?
No.
Well, good, because there's no crying in baseball.
Please subscribe.
Bye.
No! And you know why?
No.
Because there's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in baseball!